Welcome into Clippers Talk from the mainland. I'm not in Hawaii. I am out of Mossland. It's good to be with you guys. Happy to be here. We might have a special guest coming on in just a little bit as I get my cord control under control. Was on X earlier, was on Twitter, was checking out and reviewing some tape from training camp today. And there were some interesting quotes from Coach Lue that reinforced a belief that I have had with this squad. And if you're new here or just getting in and you're Jeffrey Beltran and you're saying, let's go, I appreciate you guys. It's good to be on. This is the beauty of just having my own channel now. I can just start rolling whenever I feel like it. Oh, and the usuals are here. Extra Ernie TV says, yes, we hear Adam. Clip gang, or don't bang. J Bose 84 says, good evening, Adam. Good evening, J Bose. Good afternoon in Hawaii, if you happen to be there with the team at training camp. I wanted to focus on a subject today that I've been talking about for a little bit, but I think it's become even more clear after what Coach Lue said just a little bit earlier in going off some of the training camp tape that I was able to find and some of the interviews going on from our wonderful local reporters like Joey Lynn, La Murray, Farbad Essenshari, the usuals. They do a great job. A lot of them are there. If you missed it, Carlo Jimenez was with me here on Clippers Talk Live last night from Honolulu, Hawaii. Also, if you missed this, you can't. Do not miss this. Trust me. I'm not proud of many things. I'm not a proud man. But the Ralph Lawler interview I did in Oregon a couple of weeks ago, well, part 2 just dropped last night, late last night. It's on the channel here. I would implore you, I would highly encourage you to check out that Ralph Lawler interview. Whether you saw part 1 yet, if not, go back. At the end of it, you'll see the link to part 2. But part 2 to me is even more special. We included a ton of stuff, a ton of clips pertaining to the subject matter, like how Kobe Bryant could have been a Clipper not once, but twice. Not once, but twice. And Donald Sterling let him slip through his fingers. Then you have the situation with an unknown player, a lesser-known player, someone who died tragically in his 30s. Derek Smith was a Clipper in the last year in San Diego, went with them to LA, and was a budding superstar. Was averaging over 20 a game, efficient and explosive out there. Derek Smith. If you don't know his story, you'll find out in the Ralph Lawler interview. Highly, highly recommend it, guys. And yeah, we talked about it as J Bose 84 brings it up here, watching Drive tonight after watching you guys talk about that scene in the interview. Ralph Lawler is in the movie Drive, which is a lot of people's favorite movie in the last 10 years, or it's up there. It is kind of a cult classic. Ryan Gosling, a really good flick. It is one of the better movies you will watch in the last 10 years, and it happens to be centered around, God, I guess it's over 10 years now. It's like 2011. It's centered around the starting scene is set in downtown Los Angeles as he's making a pickup at Staples Center. And so Ralph Lawler's on the call. He's listening to the game on the radio to figure out when it's over. Really, really cool. Talked about that with Ralph too. But I want to, get into the meat and potatoes of the matter today here on Clippers Talk. And again, I'm hoping for a special guest here. But I'm going to play you some audio. And this came out earlier today, day 3 of training camp. And it was from Coach Lue. And I found it illuminating. And I found it encouraging. And I'll tell you why. But first, I want you to hear this audio as I share the screen right now.
What do you see out of James? What do you see out of James at this stage of his career, and what you envision in the role that he can
Just a role he's been in his whole career in Houston. Just make sure guys get into the right spots, knowing he's going to be able to deliver the ball, any pass he can make to get guys open shots. And so just working with the young guys, telling them where to be, how to get to those spots, when to get to certain spots. And he's been great, leading this young team.
So there it was. Coach Lou talking about James Harden not just being the focal point of this team, but playing like he did in Houston, which means that is a heightened focal point, nexus point, hub on offense, heliocentric ball level than anybody outside of Luka Doncic has ever played in the NBA. Ever. Jeffrey Beltran is asking me, Adam, will you ever do an episode with fans as guests? You know us regular folk, LOL. Maybe. I don't know how I could work that out, but maybe. I'll consider that for sure. If you guys are into it, I appreciate you guys checking out the content and hanging with me. So I'll try to figure that out at some point. But I have been saying, if you listen to Clips and Dip, if you listen here on Clippers Talk, that this is James Harden's team now. And it has to be out of necessity because, unfortunately, the lack of availability with Kawhi Leonard. It's not that Kawhi doesn't want to play. He does. His knee doesn't always want to listen. A troublesome right knee. And once again, didn't participate in any of the drills at practice again today. I'm hoping they're just being overly cautious to an extent we haven't seen before in the Kawhi Leonard era of Clippers basketball. Because why not? After what has occurred the last 4 years, they should be. It makes sense to be. It is wise and would be wise of them to do so. Just realized I forgot to put my selfie light on, but whatever. Who needs it? James Harden is the guy now. How this Clippers season goes, a lot of it is going to depend on James. At the age of 35. Just turned it, I don't know, I think a month ago, somewhere there. Now, when he was with Houston in his last season there, he was at the age of 30. The 1920 season, his last full season, you could say, where he played 68 games. He started the 2021 year, played 8 games, won it out. They made it happen. And he went to Brooklyn. I don't expect James Harden to go back to averaging 34 points per game. I don't expect him to average as many points as his age is currently. And yeah, he turned 35 on August 26th. That's unrealistic. But what I do expect from James is for him to be featured and run the show offensively and make the trains run on time for the Clippers. Everybody knows they're playing off of James Harden. That's it. That's the type of team this is going to be. And those teams have been very successful in the past. You can argue and quibble over the fact that he hasn't won a championship, and then you can say, well, his style of basketball must not work. He just brought up at Media Day on Monday how obviously it can work. Luka Doncic just got to the NBA Finals. He plays the exact same way. Everything's focused around him. Everything flows through him. I don't know if this Clippers team, as currently constructed, is a championship contender now. But I do know a James Harden offense with him as a system. He didn't say the system, just to be, particular about this and pedantic and accurate. He didn't say the system. He knows there's a lot of different systems out there. There's not just one, or he's not elevating himself and saying that there's only one way to do this. I am the system. He said a system. And the full quote is, I'm not a system player. I'm a system. Facts. Inarguable. In fact, I was going to ask him if I got a chance at Media Day to get a little bit inside the mind of James Harden in terms of what he sees and what he's looking for once he crosses half court and how he reads the floor so well, because he's been doing it for a long, long time. It's proven. It is a system that is successful. Anthony Lutti says, those teams have been very successful in the past, quoting me, and said, thank you, in all caps. Yeah, they have. In fact, there was a 2-year window there with the Houston Rockets where they had one of the best teams of all time. I'm telling you, one of the greatest teams of all time. He had CP3 as his running mate. We're talking about the 17-18, 18-19 Houston Rockets. Here was the problem. Well, they might have been a top 10 team ever. They happened to be in an era where they were taking on the greatest team ever. The Golden State Warriors that won 73 games and then added Kevin Durant and were on steroids at that point. Not literally, but they had that much firepower already. You add Kevin Durant, another jolt. They already were making the argument for the best team ever and blew a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals the year before and then got to add KD. The only reason that James Harden doesn't have a ring is because he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time taking on the KD Golden State Warriors. So don't tell me this garbage that it can't work. Please, spare me. Look at the context of that situation. Look into the details there. How many teams have been as good as that Houston Rockets team were? They took Golden State to 7 games without CP3 the last 2, and it still took them missing 27 straight three-pointers at one point, an all-time NBA record, for Golden State to win that Game 7 with Kevin Durant. In some ways, Golden State was fortunate, but in pretty much every way, the Houston Rockets were very unfortunate. So when I heard James Harden talk about this, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but where is he at when it comes to a championship? He realizes how much luck is involved, how circumstantial it is, and how much is outside of your control. I think the Clippers, if any franchise has known this over the last 5 years, it's them. They didn't build a team that couldn't win a championship. They had the roster in place. Kawhi and Paul George worked on the court, but they couldn't stay healthy, and the window may have shut when Kawhi unfortunately did his ACL in that Game 4 in the second round against the Utah Jazz in 2021. That's outside of your control. That's not Lawrence Frank's fault. I saw somebody the other day saying it's not working with Lawrence Frank. It's never worked with him. Why? Because of reasons within his control or reasons outside of his control? Because you couldn't have predicted what happened to Kawhi there. Yeah, we knew there were some injury concerns. Nobody said, well, I mean, he's got the bad thighs, so that means he's going to tear his ACL at some point. Nobody said that. Nobody said he'd take that bad step next to Joe Ingles. Nobody predicted any of these things. I don't want to hear any revisionist history now. Nobody could have seen Paul George missing as many games as he missed as a Clipper. He only played 40 more games than Kawhi did. And Kawhi missed an entire season because of the ACL. Paul George had just played, I think, 77 his last year with OKC, even with the shoulders. I mean, my God, if it wasn't for bad luck, the Clippers would have no luck at all. As Brian Seaman likes to say and has said on here, if they just had bad luck and not horrific, horrible, completely unfortunate, out of this world bad luck, they would have won at least a ring or 2. But the hits kept on coming, and Kawhi hasn't been able to stay healthy. And this is how you get to the point where James Harden at 35 is running the show. And a system is he, and the Clippers are building around it. You know what that means? They have a built-in identity. It's James Harden basketball. heavy ISO, heavy usage rating. Be prepared for a lot of catch and shoots and guys surrounding him. There are 3-and-D players, which they have a plethora of. And be prepared to beat Zubats to find yourself rolling to the basket for some easy ones. Here's what's really interesting. James Harden traditionally has just worked with a rim runner and finisher, a lob threat. Clint Capella was amazing. Ivica Zubats has more to his game. A lot more. You couldn't give it to Capella on the block and just let him go to work like Big Zoo can. Now, Zoo, not quite the finisher as Capella, but he's not bad in that area. So then you add this other dimension he has where you can say, Zoo, go get a bucket. And he talked about it on Media Day, and he's talked about it a ton. He has all the belief in the world when he's on the block, when he's down low, that he can create for himself and get a basket and use his size and his force and his coordination with both hands. We've seen the left hand being used much more now. The right hand was always a problem. I remember, what was the quote from who was the MMA fighter back in the day from Pride? Krokop. I forget where he was from. I don't know if he was from Croatia. But he used to say something like, right leg hospital, left leg cemetery, or maybe the reverse of that, because his kicks were devastating and would knock you out all the time. And if he caught you with the dominant leg, you were cooked. A lot of guys were outside of Fedor. Ivica Zubats dominant with the right hand, but the left hand ain't bad. Left hand hospital, right hand cemetery. That type of thing. It is going to be that two-man duo that is going to define a lot of what happens on the offensive end for the Clippers all season long. It's going to be up to them, and it starts with James Harden. And I don't know if there's many better guys in NBA history with where you'd want the ball in their hands more than James, because good things happen. And I don't think you guys understand. James Harden is so analytical, and this is why I wanted to ask him on Media Day, but didn't get a chance to, about how he sees the floor. It's like if you have Clippers court vision and you've watched that program, it's beautiful. You're going to see all the percentages. When a guy takes a shot, depending on where he is on the floor, you see what he shoots from that spot. That's one of the cool features. It's like when James Harden crosses half court, he has the augmented reality on, or James Harden vision, where he's running through all the analytics depending on where somebody is on the floor, what they shoot there, where they're most comfortable. He's computing all this at once. Call him the bearded wonder, call him data. It is important to him, and I think he learned this working with Mike D'Antoni, to create the most efficient shot as possible each and every time down. That's what you're looking for in your leader and your floor general. That's the name of the game. Points per possession. That's it. The team that's more efficient there, gonna win. And James Harden, the reason his teams have always made the playoffs is because he optimizes points per possession. And it's really damn impressive. Now, what can he do at the age of 35? Because last season, while playing 72 games, he was only at 34 minutes per ball game for the Clippers. Fewest amount of minutes he had played per ball game since the 2011-2012 season with OKC, when he was a third option. At 35, can he still play? Let's see where he was in Houston in his prime. 36, 37 minutes a night? I don't know. Those aren't just any minutes. You know, when you talk about pitchers, and we're about to see this weekend here in LA, Dodgers taking on the Padres. But there are innings that are more taxing than others. When there's high traffic on the base paths and those high leverage moments, they take more out of you. James Harden's 36, 37 minutes are different than other guys because he's playing with the ball in his hands so much. It's not the same. They are taxing. So I don't know at the age of 35 if he can play 35 minutes a night. I don't know. Do I think it's going to be necessary for the Clippers to get by? Probably. Will his efficiency go down a little bit? Likely. But that's okay. It can dip some because he's going to have to put up more than 11 shots per game like he did last season. He's not playing next to Paul George, Russ, and Kawhi anymore. It's just when Kawhi's available. So the shots are going to go up. I think somewhere between 16 and 18 per game. Somewhere in that range. It all depends how many games Kawhi Leonard ends up playing. But I wouldn't be surprised if the overall effective field goal percentage or true shooting percentage goes down for James Harden. Not about that. Yes, efficiency is important, points per possession, but even him with a dip in those percentages is better than a lot of the other guys that are out there. But he's also going to raise and elevate everybody around him. All right, we got some questions here as we're talking about James Harden's Clippers. Because as I played the audio earlier from Coach Lou, when you hear him talk about going back to Houston with James Harden and how we need to play like that, that tells you all you need to know. It is his squad. The reason? Because of the position he plays, because of how unique he has been in this game and the way he plays it, and the availability or lack thereof of Kawhi Leonard, where his knee has been unreliable. I'm not going to put it on him. He wants to play. It's his knee. I'm going to make a comparison for you here. I said it on Twitter a little bit earlier when I posted that audio from Coach Lou. Some people may not like this because of the names involved, but I think it's accurate when it comes to roles. And I'm talking about a duo that Clipper Nation knows really well, and I'm drawing a parallel to how I think things will go with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard this year in terms of roles. I think it's going to be somewhat similar to what we saw from Russell Westbrook and Paul George in OKC in the 2018-2019 season. Here's what I mean by that. It was still Russell Westbrook's team. It was. It centered around him and his chaotic style of basketball. In that way, he's very different than James Harden. But the reason I say it could be like that, because Paul George played off of him and was still the leading scorer, getting 6 more points per game. He was at 28 points per game. Russ was at 22, while it was still Russ's team. Just because you're the number one scoring option doesn't mean it's your team, doesn't mean you can't still be playing off of someone else. Everything was still geared towards Russ. But Paul George was playing as the number one scorer out there. I think that's what we're going to see when Kawhi Leonard's available next to James Harden. That's why I say that comparison. Because while James is going to be in control of the basketball, making the decisions out there, Kawhi's going to play off of him and benefit, and he's going to get Kawhi to his spots, just like Russ would do with Paul George during that 18-19 season where PG-13 ended up top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting and MVP voting. Jonathan Ing says, if you haven't talked about Chris Dunn yet, I forgot who said it, but Dunn pushing Harden in camp, guarding 94 feet against Harden against point-of-attack defenders. Clippers haven't had an attack dog like that since Pat Bev. Thanks, Jonathan Ing. I know you read my tweets, man. Just give me credit. You know I've already been saying it. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but that is the comparison. There's a lot of Patrick Beverley in Chris Dunn. and it's his style of play. And if you want to check out the tweet I put out yesterday where I had the DMX music going in it, here it is. I said, Chris Dunn is my new favorite Clipper. Saw a clip with Joey Lynn and wanted people to know they once again have a tone setter and a physical presence on defense like they haven't had since who? Since Pat Bev. Not looking for anyone to get hurt, just excited for that toughness and passion again. Feel like you probably saw that, Jonathan, but great minds think alike. Whatever. He goes on to say, lack of attack dog explains how DJJ locked up PG because he didn't have reps from someone who would push him. Love having the attack dogs we have defensively this year between Dunn, DJJ, and Terance Mann. Yeah, we do. I don't think that was the issue with Paul George really at all, to be honest. Russ fans would say, what do you mean? He was the attack dog. Yeah, well, he went 8 for 42 the last 5 games of that series. So I do think there's an edge that Chris Dunn plays with that can inspire others, let's say. Can bring out the best in others. JM13 says, what's good, Adam? I know we were just having a discussion about Kawhi's playing style or you just want him to play in general. Yeah, I made that comparison with Paul George and Russell Westbrook in the 18-19 season in OKC to how James Harden and Kawhi could play off one another and their roles and how it could be defined this season. And he said, and started talking about Kawhi needing to take more three-pointers. I'm like, man, we're not even at the point yet to where we can say what Kawhi Leonard needs to do when he's on the court. We just need to get him on the court. Let's see him get on the court. I'm just hoping the guy can play 55 games right now. Style of play? Why are we talking about that? Let's not get too greedy with it. We just want to see him out there. Yeah, he's a great, great three-point shooter and doesn't get enough credit and probably doesn't take enough. Most he has taken in a season on average is 6. Paul George that season with OKC, 18-19 year, was taking almost 10 three-pointers per game, which is why many think that was his best season as a pro. Wish he took more as a Clipper. Cesar Gamero says, is there anything else besides defense that you are concerned about with James Harden? Not really. Up and down play in the playoffs. But why are we even talking about playoffs yet? Clippers got to get there. Some people might say he's too ball dominant. I don't like this style of play. My guy Dime Dropper would say that. I don't care what you like. I care what's effective. I'll take effectiveness over preference and style. That's why people would say all the time with Russ, oh, I love his energy. Cool. Energy's great. Know what's better? Effectiveness. James Harden is that. Do you want to win? Or do you only want to win your way? That guy, Spencer, said, will T-Man step up with PG gone as a scorer? He has to some degree. I think he will. If you look at what he did in the playoff series last year against the Dallas Mavericks, I think we got a glimpse into the future with Terance Mann and what he could do this year. His points per game, they weren't up by much, but they were up a little bit. He was getting 32 minutes per game during the playoff series against Dallas versus 25 minutes per game during the regular season with the Clippers last year. But 9 points, 5 boards, a couple of assists. Oh, and then there's this little stat about Terance Mann that I saw today. I knew his defense was good. And I knew in that series against Dallas, he had peaked as a defender. Not, it's all downhill from here peaking. I just mean that was the best he had ever played defensively. Because Luka Doncic only shot 40% in that series and 23% from 3 against the Clippers. Well, guess what? If you go off the matchup data with Terance Mann against Luka, which is more accurate than just saying, well, Luka overall in the series shot 40% because multiple guys are guarding him during the series. But if you go for the matchup data, and isolate him versus Terance Mann. Mann guarded Luka Doncic for 28 minutes and 15 seconds total in the 6 games. Remember, these are Sport VU cameras. It's not a perfect science. And I think the chips they have in their jerseys putting this stuff together, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. 28 minutes and 15 seconds, he was on Luka one-on-one. Luka during that time was 15 of 39 from the floor. That's 38.5%, so even lower than he shot overall in the series, and went 0 for 12 from 3 against Terance Mann. He didn't hit a 3 on him, guys. I'd say that's elite defense. I'd say that's a guy worth paying under $16 million per year. Some Laker fan was getting on me earlier. I told him he should stay out and sit this one out. I don't know why Lakers fans are getting wind in their jaws and wanting to talk about the Clippers and worry about their role players and how good they are and if the contract was comparable to their play. I mean, come on. Worry about yourself. Worry about your own team. Laker fans, I don't need this stuff, but I'll show it to you because I think you guys will be entertained. And it's always fun to dunk on the Laker fans. Why not? This guy named Sean, who's at YouAreDumb24. I've known him to be a bit of a troll on Twitter. Watch out for him. I don't think he was trolling, though, when he said Mann averaged 9 and 5 while shooting 41% from the field. Well, he didn't shoot 41% from the field last year. That's, yes, what he shot in the playoff series against Dallas because he mostly was taking threes where he shot 45%. But on the season, he shot 51% from the floor. And let's not forget what he was able to do at the basket, where the last 2 years at the guard position, he has finished top 3 in the restricted area in field goal percentage, Terance Mann. And while he started off so slow last season from 3, he ended the year his last 50 games, and then when you add in the playoffs, shooting 45% from 3 over a 50-game sample. Don't tell me this was an overpay, please. Or just tell me you weren't paying attention. Like Sean, YouAreDumb24, who I think I said, read your in the mirror to yourself. I ain't got time for these Laker fans, but I probably gave them too much time. That guy, Spencer, said, is 12 points per game too much to ask? From Terance Mann, no. I think 12 is reasonable. It might be on the high side, just given he's been around 8. But 4 more points per game, I think, is possible. I really do. Let's see how many shots he took and attempted per game last season. Oh, my goodness. He was only at 6 field goal attempts. So let's say he gets to 10. There you go. He's got a great chance then of going from 8.8 points per game, where he was at the last 2 years, to possibly 12. Especially if he starts hot from 3 this year. Last 2 seasons, he started so woefully low from the outside, guys. That was the problem. Finished strong over the last 50 games into the playoffs. Just over 44% from 3, Terance Mann. It's a good problem to have, that the only issue is him shying away from taking threes. Kind of like Luke Kennard at times, who would get benched when he didn't take 3-pointers. He turned down a 3, Coach Lou would take him out. You're too good at it. Sorry. You got to teach guys lessons that way. It's tough love. But T-Man almost needs to be the same thing. He's not the sharp shooter that Luke Kennard is, but he's a 37% career 3-point shooter. He's an above average 3-point shooter. They need him to take and make those shots. Can't make them if you don't take them. What's the old Wayne Gretzky quote? The Office then took ownership of. I can't stress enough how important it is for Terance Mann to start fast. I think if he starts fast from 3, there's not going to be an issue at all. Because he'll have the confidence coming off the playoff series, coming off the last 50 games from last season. and he'll continue to shoot them. The only issue would be if he starts cold and then he loses confidence and shies away. That cannot happen. We got some good questions here. Keep them coming, guys. I appreciate y'all. Jonathan Ing weighing in again. T-Man locking up Luka matched the eye test that his shooting splits ended up being. Yeah, it did. Jeffrey Beltran says, bold prediction. Bold move, Cotton. T-Man averages 15, 7, and 4. Yeah, that's highly unlikely. I don't think he's going to almost double his points per game average. I think 14 or 13 points per game is probably the max. Because if he's averaging 15, which you have to understand, Jeffrey, is that means he's having a bunch of games where he's getting 20 and a bunch of games where he's getting 10 too, most likely. I don't know if he's going to have a bunch of games getting 20. I don't know if he's that type of scorer. He hasn't proven it consistently. He's good. He's necessary. We have our friend from Japan weighing in. I think T-Man is 12 points per game, but Zoo is 16 points per game or higher. I think that is correct. I agree with that. I can see both guys finishing somewhere plus or minus a point from where you just put that. So that guy, Spencer, you got a friend here. Someone else believes it too. Appreciate you guys joining me here on Clippers Talk Live. I believe we'll have a special guest in about 10 minutes here from Hawaii, from Honolulu. Somebody at training camp. Jonathan Ing says, Harden being in really good shape, looking leaner, makes me optimistic about how he's going to be the number one option on nights Kawhi is out. Yeah. I think James Harden, and I hope, I've been wondering this for a while, if even though he's getting older, even though he's 35, is there something to getting further and further away from the hamstring injury he had in the playoff series in 2021 with Brooklyn? Those things can linger and sap some of your explosiveness in that first step. And I wonder if just a few more years removed, maybe he'll regain a little bit of that burst. We'll have more blow-bys, as blow-by watch is a thing between me and Darian Baziri, Dime Dropper. We love watching to see if he and Kawhi can still get by guys. Harden looks so lean, says J-Bo's 84, and in shape, and he's going to have a ton of help on defense this year. I think he'll have a bit of a renaissance year this year and surprise the rest of the NBA. I think some people will definitely be surprised. My friend Jason Smith on Fox Sports Radio somehow, I don't know, some way came to this conclusion that James Harden, his contract was the worst contract given out during free agency, which is insane on so many levels, Jason. I love you, but it is a 1+1, my friend. It's $70 million total, 35 this year, 35 next year, and oh yeah, there's a player option after this year, so he probably is going to opt out, which means he's also playing for his next contract. In what way could that be the worst contract in the league? Nonsense. JMI 1324 says, I thought Terance Mann was going to get $20 million on the open market, but glad he got $16 million per year. T-Man earned that contract. It was given. I'm really happy for Terance Mann, and I'm really happy for the Clippers because it looks like it means to him, he probably could have gotten more. If he has a good year, he definitely would have gotten more in the open market. But a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Who knows what the year could bring? Maybe it's going to relax him more, not having to play for a contract and bring out the best in him. But all I know is T-Man is so grateful to this organization for taking a chance on him. He said at Media Day, he was talking about his last year at Florida State going to play overseas. He didn't even think he'd be drafted. And now he's going into his 6th season in the NBA. It's a great story, and it epitomizes what Clipper Nation is all about. We're trying to build a culture around guys like Terance Mann who are competitive, grinders, who earn everything out there. I think Terance Mann, I hope, is going to be a Clipper for life. We'll see. because it's also a very tradable contract, and you never know what needs you could have down the road. But we love him. He's a fan favorite. He was voted fan favorite. Clipper Nation has been on T-Man's side and has had his back for some time now. Cesar Gamero says this. This is funny. Are we going to see Harden go close out Kawhi again? Remember after passing the ball, Kawhi's taking that three in the far side corner, and Harden goes up and put a hand up. Afterwards said, I was just trying to have some fun out there. I think it was during that stretch where the Clippers were struggling around 500 for about a month and a half, just looking for something. I don't know if that's what got him out of that slump, but it was humorous. What else we got here? What 25 and under guy are we optimistic about? Says Cesar Gameros. Jordan Miller, Kevin Porter Jr., Kai Jones, Kobe Brown, Bones Highland. All those guys for me. All of them. Now, I've almost given up on Bones Highland being a part of this team just because we know they've been upfront about the fact that they have tried to accommodate him and trade him to a team that will give him more minutes. He and PJ Tucker at the trade deadline got sent home because they were unhappy after not being traded. Lawrence Frank reiterated that point this summer. So I don't know if Bones is long for being a Clipper. I'd love him to be, but I also don't know where he fits in with you bringing in Chris Dunn and Kevin Porter Jr. Yes, you lost Russ, but you just brought in two more guys for playing time. How does Bones beat them out? I saw a highlight from training camp of him on a catch and shoot three. Looked good. It was the same clip that had Kobe Brown knocking one down too. There's a lot of guys, a lot of young guys that have an opportunity right now because, as Coach Lou said, our young guys, quote, are going to have to step up. They got to play now. It's going to be an open competition. I hope this is a real open competition and not just trying to motivate guys to play hard in training camp when they already might know who exactly is going to have these positions and roles. I hope it's a real open competition with real ramifications by how guys play, because then it makes preseason and training camp much more interesting. We got a game on Saturday. Preseason game number 1 from Honolulu. Clippers taking on the Golden State Warriors. Pregame at 3 on AM 570 LA Sports. Here we go from Jonathan Ing saying, if Zoo isn't averaging 17 to 11 boards, the Clippers are going to be in trouble. I mean, if he got 16 and 10 or 15 and 10, I think they could also be okay. It depends. Because if he's not averaging that, but Terance Mann is at 14 points per game, you're okay. Other guys supplement it and figure it out. Not everybody has to have the huge breakout season. You could have a bunch of guys incrementally taking a step forward. 15 and 10 for Zoo would still be a step forward. Jonathan Ing also says, media folks looking at Harden's contract, not looking at the details, only the years and dollars. But years and dollars also should not make anyone say this is the worst contract given this summer, when it's 2 years at most at $70 million for James Harden. Are you kidding? There's no way to explain it away that could somehow be a bad contract. Like, yeah, if he got hurt and never played all season long, people would say that retroactively, but that's stupid. You can't plan for that stuff. But given who he is, with production and also a marketing element from having a superstar like that, $35 million is likely all they're going to pay, because after a year, he's probably going to opt out, and he's primed to have a big year with how lean he looks and how much of an opportunity he'll have to run the show. It makes no sense to me. Jason Smith was just out of his gourd with that one, or maybe just going for a hot take. Cesar Gamero says, yes, T-Man Clipper for life. Put that up already. JMI 1324 says, I think Harden's going to average 20, 10, and 6 this year for real. I think it's very likely. I think those are all reasonable, realistic numbers. That's a fair stat line to put out there. You know, I want to know what his splits are going to be with Kawhi in those games versus without Kawhi when he's missing games. In those games without Kawhi, is he going to have to average 26, 27 points? Is he going to have to get 12 assists? Tough to put up that level of scoring with all those assist numbers, but he's done it in the past. I just don't know if at 35 you can rely on that. Luis Lemus says, can't wait to see the Sixers give PG soft the Tobias treatment. Sixers fans? Yeah, it's going to be a rough time when he does struggle. That is bound to happen at some point. But I don't know. I'm worried about the Clippers, guys. I kind of want to move on. We'll talk about it November 6th. We'll talk about it in the game in Philly. But outside of that, I don't plan on talking about Paul George a ton, whether he's playing well or playing poorly. That's not my thing. I don't want him living rent-free in anyone's mind at this point. JMI 1324 says, with Kawhi, he's got about 20, 10, and 6. Without Kawhi, about 24, 9, and 7. Well, therefore, your season-ending averages could be somewhere around, depending on how many games Kawhi plays, let's say if he plays 55, 22 points per game, 23 points per game. I don't know. Yeah, give me some more likes, y'all. I love when people come in here and say that for me. Y'all are too nice. I have a guest coming on, I think in just moments here, from Hawaii, which I'm excited for. We're definitely going to show this person some love, so I want some more likes when this guy comes in. But I am very much encouraged right now by what I'm hearing and seeing in training camp based upon the conversation around and surrounding James Harden. Because this is like your safety valve or security blanket. Having James Harden, running the James Harden offense, traditionally, that means you're going to be a top 10 offense. I don't know, though, at the age of 35, if we can say that for sure anymore. You could a few years ago. You could pencil it in, top 10 offense. Oh, James Harden, top 10 offense. Just like Rudy Gobert, if you have him, top 10 defense. This is going to be kind of an experiment this season in a lot of ways, but truly, we're going to find out where James Harden is at in his career and how close he is to his prime. Our friend from Japan, and I can't read the name, I'd love to know what it is in English, says, Adam, do you think the Mo Bamba injury situation, what do you think about it? Can we look for him to play in the Saturday game? So I was watching tape earlier from training camp, and I did see him going through, I don't know if you consider this walkthrough, some half-court sets. He wasn't moving all that fast. It was just 5 minutes of tape. Saw Jeff Van Gundy preaching and teaching out there along with Coach Lou. It was really cool to see, guys. Like Jeff Van Gundy back coaching and with the Clippers. This is so awesome. It really puts some wind in your sails, so to speak. The Clippers got the guy that a lot of people have wanted to come back to coaching for a long time in the NBA. You can make the argument, because I already think Coach Lou is a top 3, top 5 head coach at worst, that the Clippers have the best coaching staff because they have him and Jeff Van Gundy, 2 guys who are on Team USA. Anybody else have 2 coaches that were on Team USA in the league? No. Richard Heacock says Harden should be able to go 22-10 at good efficiency. He'll do his part. Go Clippers. If it was prime James Harden, I would say easy money. I don't know where he's at physically. And even if he starts off the season hot, there's likely going to be some down points. Little injuries, nagging injuries happen that could slow him down. And they tend to prolong when you're older. It's just harder to make it through the 82 games. I think I would love to see him be able to play 70 this season. If he can, I think he can keep the Clippers afloat. But I still need to know where Kawhi Leonard's at. I think they need him for 55 games or more to have a shot to get out of the plan. Probably 60 or more to have a shot to stay out of the plan. But I could be wrong. Other guys could rise up. Guys like Norman Powell could have a huge year. And maybe his defense will be better. And maybe he's going for that second number 2 spot in the backcourt, playing the 2 slot, 2 position next to James Harden. Therefore, he has to play better defense. If Norm has a really efficient, high-scoring year where he's averaging 20 points per game, I mean, that cures a lot of what ails you right there. If you just tell me Norm Powell is getting efficient 20 per game, which is very reasonable, that cures a lot of losing James Harden, or losing Paul George. And it might tell you who could be playing next to James Harden a lot. Jonathan Ing says the Clippers may get poor treatment at the free throw line from the refs, but also Harden can't do a ton of the grifting he used to be able to do. No, he can't. He hasn't done as much. He hasn't gotten to the line as much. There's been a precipitous drop-off there from James Harden. It's what happens with guys when they get older. He's not attacking as much, so there's less of a chance that you're going to get as many free throws attempted. I'll give it to you from last season. He was only at 4.8 free throws attempted per game. That was down from 6.2 from the year before. The year before that, he was at 8.9. So pretty steep drop-off. You go from 8.9 just 2 years ago, 9 free throws per game to 5 free throws per game. Richard Heacock says another plus is that James will not turn the ball over nearly as much as PG or Russ. That is a plus. This automatically makes us more efficient. Plus, I think our shooting splits will be much better without Russ. Yeah, probably. Speaking of things being much better, I got a guy here who's going to make the show much better. Live from Honolulu, Hawaii, is the great La Murray of The Athletic, sipping on a Mai Tai in a can. Maybe not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
La, what's good, my friend? Thank you for doing this here on assignment with Clippers training camp, no less. I don't want to keep you too long. You tell me when you got to go, because I know there is some downtime, and I want you to enjoy Hawaii. But thanks for coming on Clippers Talk Live.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and it's good to be out here. I'm trying to enjoy it tonight. So yeah, I ain't gonna be here forever, but none of us will be, right? So
when you go, give me the peace sign and just fade out like that one guy in those memes. just give me that.
We need to we need to update our memes. Like, we got too many memes that some of y'all parents was using. So like, we definitely need to upgrade on some of those things, but I'll let you know.
If I see a Jordan crying face, I'm going to start crying. Come on, guys. It's too old now. La, I thought you had some great questions the last couple of days at training camp. And today you tried to probe Coach Lue a little bit. Pause. You tried to ask him and press him on some questions regarding a starting unit. He would not divulge or show his hand. You did the best you could. So what's your guess right now where he could be leaning? You said obviously James is in there, Vitsa Zubats, Kawhi if he's healthy, but who are some of the other guys that you think are most likely to be in that starting unit?
I mean, I've already, since the beginning of July, kind of planted my flag on the 4 guys who started for the team last year and Derrick Jones Jr. in place of Paul George. And, you know, I'm not moving off of that, but Kawhi's status, especially this preseason, lends itself to other guys and other options. You can go so many different ways. And I think the way that I think I'm going to kind of stay on is having Norman Powell wind up starting when Kawhi is not there. That makes you for sure small at forward. But with the way that team wants to play, I think that's probably what they wind up doing. I think offensively it's good enough. You got James is the main piece, getting his enough guys who can handle the ball, shoot the ball, score the ball, have energy. If it allows you to play extremely fast, and then
breaking news, starting lineup data. Here we go.
You know, I just feel like that's the lineup that I'm kind of sticking with. But there's other guys that we've kind of seen discussed over the last 10 days or so. I don't think Nicholas Batum is a serious candidate to start, but he makes sense in a lot of regards if Kawhi's not there because of the position that he plays. Then there's a guy like Chris Dunn. I've been hearing Chris Dunn's name every single day that Tyronn Lue's been asked to do anything. I think that Chris Dunn was brought here as a priority guy. Like, they traded Russell Westbrook for the right to give Chris Dunn a multi-year deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, Chris Dunn's going to play. And I think that the most interesting thing that was said by both Lawrence and T. Lue is that Chris doesn't need the ball. Chris himself said he doesn't need the basketball. So that means he can be the one, he can be the two. He can defend, which means that he can not only defend point of attack, but he can defend in the backcourt, 94 feet, Pat Bev style. That is something the Clippers have been searching for literally since Patrick Beverley left. They thought they had it in Eric Bledsoe. And to be honest with you, I thought Eric Bledsoe was fair, at least defensively. And I think that, like, I go back to the lineup that T. Lue used to begin the 2021 season. It was Reggie Jackson, Bledsoe, Paul George, Marcus Morris, and Ivica Zubac. When Marcus's knee acted up and he couldn't go after the first week of the season, they just slid Nicholas Batum in that spot. So I think Chris Dunn is someone to keep an eye on. I think Norm is someone to keep an eye on. I think Nico Batum is someone to keep an eye on. And that is it. Everyone else is immaterial to me as it relates to possible starters.
What's this business regarding Chris Dunn? I know he talked about a full circle moment, being with the Clippers in the G League, reviving his career. Now he's back. He's in Hawaii once again, now playing on the Clippers side. But he was picking up guys 94 feet. He was picking up James Harden and putting some pressure on him so they could figure out how to break the press in practice.
I mean, that, and because, I mean, look, let's just be real. Like, they all need to be prepared for teams to pressure the hell out of James, especially if Kawhi's not there. Like, James is a guy that, I mean, I saw it as soon as the first game after All-Star break. I remember, I think it was Lou Dort picked up James Harden, and James got his handle taken from him to begin that game. I knew what that game was going to be like from then on. Like, the Clippers have to understand that teams are going to prioritize getting the ball out of James' hands. And so Chris Dunn is valuable to the Clippers because of his defensive activity and because of his versatility offensively. And because that dude had to be humbled. Like, there are a lot of dudes in the NBA, their moment of humility, it might never come, or they might never get it. In other words, they should have been humbled, didn't realize it, and teams just decided they're not messing with them no more. Chris was a top 5 pick in the last decade. Let me say it again. Chris Dunn is one of the highest drafted Clippers to be on this team in this recent era of Clipper basketball, an era that I'm going to try my best to kind of eliminate from my brain when I think about how this team will play this season and going forward. But like, Chris Dunn has some pedigree, and dude has signed a lot of contracts. He was out of the league. He was looked at as a guy who, just simply put, was not valuable to teams anymore. And he had to regain that. I got a first row seat to the redemption ladder, like, I remember when Chris got to the Agua Caliente Clippers. I was like, oh, that's an interesting name. That dude was totally signed the same offseason by the same team that Rajon Rondo was signed to, the Atlanta Hawks, in 2020. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it all went downhill for Chris. He wasn't healthy. His shot was a hot mess. He's had to rebuild his game. And that humility is attractive to a Clippers team that needs dudes to play like there's no damn tomorrow. The level of urgency has to pick up for this team to be relevant and competitive. And so, Chris can still do a lot of the things that got him drafted. His handle is really good. Like, Chris Dunn is very confident with the ball in his hands. He's always been a steals artist. Like, the more that guy plays, like, I bet his steals per minutes is we should talk about that the way some people are going to talk about Tyus Jones and Monte Morris's assist to turnover ratio in Phoenix. Like that dude forces turnovers when he's on the floor. But it's the things that he's developed, over the last few years that is going to be relevant for the Clippers. He's got no ego defensively, and he has no ego offensively. He's going to play with point guards this year while being a point guard himself, and that is going to be a key to where that's why I say, like, I don't think he should start, but I will be very interested to see his usage this preseason.
Yeah, to your point regarding turnovers and generating steals, his per 36 numbers have him at 2.2 steals per game for his career. He hounds guys. I love him. Honestly, I loved him at Providence, and I think it's remarkable the turnaround he's had with the type of player he's turned into in this league now. I never would have seen this coming like this, especially because you mentioned everything he's been through. And I do like the fact that a guy has been humbled. He's had to rebuild his game, and that screams redemption story with the Clippers, like Nico Batum, like Reggie Jackson, like some of these guys that have been revitalized with this team, even though he already has showed it, I think, the last year and 20 so games with Utah.
Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all do that one. After what happened with John Wall, I'm done. Like I'm
They don't
done
all
putting.
hit.
Well, not even. I don't say that because it didn't hit. I just say it because I just feel like other people can do, write their stories about that. I'm just off of it. Like I'm not interested. I want these guys to just play ball and be normal, going to work. I don't. I ain't really much for the trauma porn. And with Chris, it's like at the end of the day, the dude still gets a hoop. He's 30 years old. Like I'm just the redemption arc. I know is a lot, but it's like you gonna keep that same energy if it don't work out, or when shit hits the fan again, or something like that. I don't really want to do that, and that's the other thing. These dudes, not to be a wet blanket or anything, there's a reason these dudes have something to prove. The talent or the fits might not fucking work. Like I'm just being real. Like,
No, it's true.
like these dudes, there is a vision, and I see the vision, and there's reasons to be optimistic. But we got to be real about this is a 30-team league, and these guys have to play well. They have to play well. And there's a way where they can play well, and there's a way where they don't. And you get new questions that you ask. Hopefully not in October. I think October is a little too much for that, but November isn't. We saw how November went last year. So, these guys have to play well. Let's just keep it a beam.
Yeah, I know. I find it interesting the way he's accepted. Oh, this is how I stay in the league. I have to guard. I have to be a great defender on the perimeter. And I just have an affinity for those guys. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's kind of how I used to play at intramurals. I just love Chris Dunn in that way. But here's something I was talking about a little bit earlier, Law. I want to get your opinion on it because it's kind of inflammatory, I think, to some people when they first hear it. But this is James Harden's team now, right? It's his team. Like everything's centered around him. And I kind of look at it like when Kawhi's available, while I still expect him to take more shots in those games than James Harden, I still think it's James Harden's team because the position he plays, and I look at it almost like OKC in 2018, 2019, where Paul George was getting 28 per game next to Russ, who was getting 22, but it was still Russell Westbrook's team. Now, those guys and their style of play is very different than James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, but I just mean in terms of roles, I could see it kind of like that with this Clippers team. Am I on to anything there?
No, I think that's, a good way to look at it. Like Kawhi's there. He's I'm sure he's making his presence felt in the best way that he can. It's not like Kawhi is going to be yelling and screaming and carrying on like that. But, I think for any basketball team, any sports team, the guys who are most influential are the guys who are playing on the floor with guys. And James is playing right now. He's leading right now. He's been leading before camp started this week in Hawaii. Like, he took guys on his own initiative because that dude is a veteran. You know, I know a lot of the narrative with James has been centered on his own situations. A year ago, it was centered on his own situation. Like, he was in camp with the Sixers and not really involved. He was trying to get out, and he was trying to do the best he can in the slim chance that, you know, the team refused to trade him. I think people lose track of the fact that that dude loves basketball. Like, James Harden really enjoys the game of basketball, and wants to be great at it, and studies it to the point where he manipulated the game to a point where the league, as he mentioned today, had to adjust to him, both in the defenses and the rule set. There are plenty of dudes in this league right now who take their influence from James, whether it's footwork, whether it's the shot selection, the ability to draw fouls at a high rate, like the dark arts, if you will. Like, that dude is one of the most influential basketball players ever without getting the credit for being one of the most influential basketball players ever. And we haven't been able to see that because of the guys he's played with, the teams he's played on, and the situations that he's been in and or put himself through. So a lot of that is eliminated. Like, it's pure hoop. This ain't a ring chasing team. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the expectations here. You're not on a super team. Ain't nobody confusing this roster for a quote unquote super team. That's immediately what people thought when he got here. 4 future Hall of Famers from the same area. Again, just like the trauma porn, everyone wanted to write the same damn story. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, ownership of a team comes down to, who's done the most in their career, who has the voice when they speak, people listen, who has the ball in their hands, who's going to make the decisions, who has the ability to tell everybody on the floor, regardless of position, what they're supposed to do. And James checks all of those boxes, especially with Kawhi limited to begin the preseason.
I know you've talked with Coach Lou, and he has emphasized how it's an open competition. Do you believe this is just a dangle being a carrot being dangled to motivate guys during a training camp where you're doing a lot of running and you need to feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel? Or do you believe it truly is an open competition and some of these young guys can rise up and steal spots?
I'm hesitating because, on one hand, the competitiveness is real and the makeup of the roster fosters that kind of environment. I think that Russell Westbrook had a huge influence on last year's training camp, and that was positive for the team. The difference between last year's training camp and training camp 2 years ago in Vegas, I think I've mentioned this before, was night and day. I think they wasted a lot of people's time 2 years ago. No disrespect, like, that's coming from the late Jerry West. So, like, you want my source on that. It's a pretty it's one that I miss, I'll tell you that much. So,
No doubt.
I remember being with Jerry in Hawaii last year, and Jerry don't got no reason to sugarcoat on nothing, and that's what we talked about. Like, Russ and the camp that was there with him was a big deal. The camp that they had when all those dudes came back, it looked like a camp of dudes that weren't ready to fucking hoop. So, like, on one hand, all those bodies in the gym are there for a reason. You got 21 professionals there. On the flip side, you have non-rotation spots. Like, there's no reasonable amount of, like, when everybody's available, there's going to be a grip of good players that won't be playing. And y'all better just understand, like, that's how it's going to be. And so it's just going to be kind of a mix. Guys are going to be competing, and guys need to be ready for opportunities, and you never know when those opportunities can come up, for a variety of reasons. But, like, when it comes down to it, though, like, you have to foster an environment of competitiveness, and it just can't be talk. You got to put good players in a camp together. You got to put guys who are going to push those dudes. I remember last year, even with it being quote unquote Camp Russ, like Xavier Moon and third stringers would run circles around the starters. Them dudes wasn't ready to hoop, and the third stringers were ready to hoop. You know what I'm saying? That's not a new thing. Back in Minnesota, when Jimmy Butler won it out, and he was actively sparring with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns and holding out a camp or whatever the heck Jimmy was doing. We all know the story. He came in there, he was with the third stringers, and he whipped that ass. Like,
hey, the Dream Team took a loss one time to some college players.
So yes, on one hand, I think that competitive environment is real, and it's more relevant now because of the type of team they have to be. They got to be dogs this year, and they can't just put a name up on the scoreboard and win games that way. They did that last year a lot of the times. They can't afford to do that this year. On the other hand, the rotation is the rotation. So just be prepared for certain guys that y'all are excited about to not be getting as much time as you might want them to get a month from now.
Just a couple more for you here, Law. I know you were there with Nico Batum. I think this was earlier today. Was it today or yesterday that he spoke?
He spoke today. I can't believe it's almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast. So to be clear, he spoke Thursday.
Well, he mentioned changes.
The sun is still up here, as you can see. So,
yeah. It
yeah.
looks beautiful. Hey, don't get it wrong. It's still 90 right now here in Burbank because the heat wave has returned here in Los Angeles, but the sun is down. He talked about changes defensively with principles and learning a new defense and talking about being more aggressive. How do you interpret that? What are the new defensive tenets? What are they doing that's different this season?
Yeah, I can't wait to get into it. Spoiler / accountability alert. That's what I want to write about.
Oh, let's go.
So hopefully
Give me the tease then. You don't got to give it all away.
I can't give it all away because I haven't written the damn thing yet. I don't know where it's going to go. Like when I write, I dig into. I don't just rely on what people said. I gotta go and do some research, not the conspiracy theory research that some of y'all be on. Actual watching ball and looking up legitimate sources and whatnot. And I gotta come to some conclusions. I might go in there with a hypothesis, and what I come back with doesn't match up with what I thought I was going to get going in. So
you're going to follow the facts and the evidence and then see where it leads.
Yeah. And I think you got to be real with yourself. I can be like, yeah, Jeff Van Gundy, that's what I'm talking about. And then I might come back and be like, yo, Jeff Van Gundy defenses will give up all the jump shots. And if that's what I find, I'm not going to withhold that because I need a Jeff Van Gundy narrative to run with. I'm going to tell it like it is. You know what I'm saying? I can't be like, hey, Jeff Van Gundy was with the Celtics last year, so the Clippers defense is going to look like the Celtics. I can tell you that's definitely not going to be the case because the Celtics were one of the very worst teams in the NBA at forcing turnovers. And all I've been hearing this week is about the emphasis on the Clippers needing to force turnovers. So that right there, you can kind of, whatever theory you had about Jeff doing the same thing that the NBA champions did just because he was a consultant with them, that's not going to be the case. The Clippers are going to be a different kind of defense. So I've just been watching Jeff kind of work the young guys, the kiddie pool, if you want to call it that, with what his defensive principles are. Those guys have to come in early and get it early because they're not going to get the same opportunities when the actual real practices are going to be on the floor. Like when there's a real practice, those dudes are like, nah, we'll get you when we need you. We got to work with the first and second units, and they got to be the ones. They're going to get the attention during the real practice. But we're seeing the young guys and, the guys who aren't super healthy and the exhibit 10s, we're seeing them get that, tutelage from Jeff before practice. So we're seeing that. I'm hearing things like being up to touch. I'm hearing things like, hey, just because they want to make that innocuous pass to the wing or to the corner doesn't mean we have to allow it, you know? And we've heard rebounding over and over and over. I don't think the Clippers are going to be a good rebounding team this year. Defensively, I don't think they're going to be a good defensive rebounding team. But that being said, they're talking about it. They're emphasizing it. They're saying that's what needs to happen. It sounds like the level of accountability is going to be such where guys will not play if they don't box out and gang rebound, if they ball watch, stuff like that. And this is Jeff Van Gundy. This is a guy who, like, it sounds like there are differences. There are differences in tone. There are differences in how he's working with the other coaches. There are differences with the veterans that they're noticing, the stars, the young guys. And I just expect there to be a real emphasis on that style of play. And I also caution, I don't care. I do care, but how a team starts out a season defensively is not indicative of them doing that all year long. The Clippers were a top 10 defense for the first quarter of last season as well, because we heard the same things for the longest time. We got to defend. We got to play hard. The Clippers defense was actually top 10, top 8 for the first quarter when they were like 9-11 or whatever they were through 20 games. They were 10-10 through 20 games last year. As their offense dominated the NBA and got comfortable, they got worse and worse on a quarter-to-quarter basis. But you do have to start somewhere. And I do think that the defense is ahead of the offense right now because the Clippers are drilling it to be that way.
Have you seen Kevin Porter Jr. out there at all? I haven't seen him in any of the footage.
I mean, he's certainly been on the court. He's certainly been with one of those second units. Let's just put it this way: he ain't working with Jeff and then before these practices. So he is. I put it out, and again, like, I don't have a aggregator on staff, so like I know some of y'all be missing what I be saying, but I put out at the end of Wednesday's practice that T. Lue dragged 10 group of guys with him to work through some specific things. Those 10 guys look like the 10 guys who reasonably could be first and second unit guys. James Harden, Terance Mann, Derek Jones Jr., Ivica Zubac, Nikola Batum, Chris Dunn, Norman Powell, Mir Coffey, and then the guys who it's like, well, there's spots open, Kevin Porter Jr. and Kai Jones. Why Kai Jones? Because Mo Bamba is dealing with knee soreness. He's been working with Jeff before practice, but they haven't had Mo participating in scrimmages up to this point. I won't be surprised if they hold Mo out Saturday. And then obviously Kawhi. So Kawhi out, Kevin Porter's been in that group. So that's not to say, oh, those are definitely starters or those are definitely the second unit or the, not saying all that. But what I am saying is Kevin Porter, as of right now, is in the mix for a spot in, if not the rotation, the edge of it.
Last one. How bad would Kai Jones have to play not to get the final two-way spot? Like, who's the next closest guy to getting it if he doesn't get it?
Well, you don't have to fill it. So,
well, do you think
there's that
they want him to be the guy?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he's one of 4 guys on Exhibit 10s. He is not in the same situation as Nate Darling, Alondas Williams, and Ray J. Dennis. Nate is well, now they're the San Diego Clippers. They've changed their name so many damn times, but Nate has been with the G League program for a few years now. Like, he's a known commodity. Alondas is a guy. He was just conference player of the year, major conference player of the year. And like, that dude was on my radar coming out of the draft. He went undrafted. He's been with a couple teams on two-way contracts and everything, but he's an NBA. He's a young veteran, right? Like, he's a known commodity. Ray J. Dennis is a rookie, but we saw him, play in Summer League. We know what he's about. Those guys are more likely to be on the G League squad than they are to be on the active roster. I still think Elijah Harkless at some point, gets a chance to compete in camp when they cycle through these E10s. Kai is not going to be in the cycle, if you will. Kai Jones everything has been put in motion for this team to have Kai as a part of the program. And because Mo is banged up right now, Kai could be the backup center as early as this weekend. I'm trying to tell y'all, like, that's what it is. Kai will be on this team as long as he doesn't wet the bed. That's as simple as that. And Kai's worked hard. He's worked hard on the floor and off the floor. He was not healthy. He was not healthy in the spring when the Clippers got him. He hurt himself in the summer, so we didn't get to see him this summer. He's healthy now. And so dude was a first round pick. I know people want to see him play. He's going to get his opportunity, and they don't want to cut him. They don't want to, even him being on a 2-way contract, they're just taking advantage of it. He's in position to matter, and T. Lue has put him in and noticed positive things. So he's on the right track for right now.
He is the great Law Murray from The Athletic. Follow him at Law Murray, VNU. No trauma porn. Just good old-fashioned sports journalism. That's what Law Murray brings you. Cold, hard facts, whether you like them or not. Law, my friend, thanks for doing this tonight here on Clippers Talk.
Hey, appreciate you, man.
Be good, Law. For Law Murray, I'm Adam Oslin. I'm out of here until Saturday. I don't think I'm doing a show tomorrow. My voice hurts. It's getting like Doc Rivers. It's getting a little bit raspy. And we got a preseason game where I'll be streaming the hour pregame show, Clippers Countdown, and the postgame show, Clippers Talk, on Clippers Talk, the YouTube channel on Saturday for Clippers Warriors. Pregame show starts at 3 p.m. Pacific. What is that? Noon Hawaii time. But I want you guys to tune in. We'll be on AM 570 LA Sports. And it's a new feature now where you can watch me. You can see the visual. You can see the behind the scenes in the Burbank studios where I'm doing the pre and post game show from. I'll have it right back here on that stream. Until then, enjoy all the content we gave you this week. I feel like we've done 5 or 6 episodes, a couple for Media Day. We had the Law Murray today. We had the Ralph Lawler yesterday. We also had Carlo Jimenez yesterday. It's been a lot, but you guys deserve it. Love you all. I will talk to you at Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific with your pregame show right back here on Clippers Talk Live. Unless, of course, there's breaking news tomorrow. Then I'll come back here right away, of course. Until then, I'm Adam Oslin. This has been another edition of Clippers Talk Live. Thanks a lot, Murray.